please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share if anyone you think would be interested in watching or listening to the podcast. We appreciate all engagement, and then obviously it helps with the algorithms as well. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can, or any kind of review. We take constructive criticism as well. So just, get engaged and involved with the podcast, as it's much appreciated. But let's get into it. Jonts, how you doing, mate? Have you recovered? Feel any better than yesterday? Or are you still feeling a bit down in the dumps?
No, I'm not necessarily down in the dumps, just a bit disappointed, obviously. And then, I mean, a lot of the content I consume is also football related, so it's just a repetition of the same stuff over and over again. So I'm watching something else today. I can't be bothered to keep hearing about Southgate and England and all this stuff. So I'm feeling all right though. Other than that, mate.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've purposely tried not to watch too much football content after the game yesterday. Got home pretty late and then just straight to bed, up for work, and have tried not to think about it too much so that we can obviously talk about it now, but also we can all predict what the media conversations are going to be, right? So hopefully we can try and delve into things with a little bit more nuance and not follow all of the kind of sensationalism that's gone on around right now. Everything's Southgate, everything's Kane. There seems to be a bit of a Jude agenda that's going on pretty strong as well from the stuff that I haven't been able to avoid. I'm seeing some things out there trying to kind of, point fingers at him, or it looks like he might be the fall guy, which, again, very predictable by our media. But let's get into the game then, Johns. As I mentioned earlier, Spain won 2-1. First half wasn't the greatest. I mean, it was we were on the edges of our seats, obviously, I think mainly because it was such an important game, but I don't think the game was, there weren't loads of chances, right? I think Spain obviously dominated the ball. We knew that was going to happen. I guess the only slight surprise was how we set up. So all of the broadcasters and every team sheet I saw when the lineup got revealed was us playing with that kind of Christmas tree type formation, 3 at the back, 4 across midfield, and then Jude and Phil Foden behind Harry Kane. But when the match actually kicked off, and for that first half, it looked a lot more like a 4-4-3. Oh no, sorry, Todd Bowley style 4-4-3, 4-3-3. With Jude kind of out left, and then Foden as like the most advanced midfielder with Saka on the right. So it was a change of formation because against Netherlands we definitely did play that Christmas tree formation for the most part of it, and it was, like we discussed, probably England's best performance, at least for the first half anyway. And it didn't. Spain obviously didn't have loads of chances, dominated the ball. I think the best chance probably fell to us, really, and that was a half chance. Phil Foden at the back post off a free kick. But second half completely different. We come out again, and we had been quite tight in that first half, but the second half we were completely open. Spain score really early with a great finish, to be fair, from Nico Williams, but we'll get into how that came about in a minute. And then all the chances come flying in, basically. I think Spain in the end had 5 or 6 shots on target. A lot of them, all of them pretty much came in that second half. Dani Olmo missed a good chance to score. Yamal missed it was probably a good save by Pickford more than a miss to put Spain 2-0 up. And then Gareth Southgate makes a change, brings on Ollie Watkins, and then brings on Palmer 5-10 minutes later. And England start to play a bit better, go a bit more gung-ho, as we've all predicted they would. Palmer equalises with a great finish. You pointed out that there was a slight nick-off, I think, Lenormand or one of the centre-backs, which kind of takes it away from Simon in goal. But then again, straight after that, basically, England dropped back deep again. And I think we didn't look like we're giving up loads of chances. I think, again, Yamal has a chance, but that's the one he really should score, where he puts it right at Pickford. And then Oyarzabal scores the winner, 5 minutes left, from a pretty straightforward cross by Cucurella, which evades quite a few people. Tight offside, but The semi-automated system shows that Oyarzabal was just onside. And then England start going for it again. Great corner by Palmer. Declan Rice rises. I don't know. I'll ask you in a minute. Maybe he could have done better, but he gets a good header off, and the goalie saves it. Gehi follow-up header. Amazing clearance off the line, to be fair, from Olmo to make sure Spain stay ahead. And yeah, the rest is history. England win. England lose 2-1. Spain have become the most winningest Euros champions in history. 4 Euros they've won now, more than Germany. England's still yet to win any. So before we get into any of those big issues, mate, well, maybe we can touch on some of the questions first. In this case, do you think Spain deserved to win? And what was your kind of reading on the game as a whole?
Yeah, I think they definitely deserve to win. I think it was not a fully one-sided game or a dominant game or any way, but they definitely had the better of the chances. They had the better of the possession. They had just, I mean, quantity-wise, a lot more than we did. We did well to stay in the game. Obviously, the Cole Palmer goal was really well worked. Saka to Bellingham, Bellingham to Cole Palmer with a good finish. Obviously, a little bit of a deflection, but you got to take what you can get here. And really, outside of that, I think they just really kind of showed. I'm not going to say the spirit or anything else or quality really, but I think they just showed how a well trained and coached team, even with slightly subpar players in certain areas, can outwork and outmaneuver a team that's not really putting things together properly, right? And so, yeah, I think the major point I want to make is that I think Luis de la Fuente has got to take a lot of credit, because I think first half it was much more even. They probably still had a slightly better chance of it in the first half, but in the second half when they came out, obviously Rodri's injured, big thing to have to deal with there. He makes changes at good times. He makes changes in the right way. He clearly comes out and tells them to be a lot more aggressive in the second half. You see a lot more line kind of breaking passes. You see a lot of kind of ability to break over that press and then get into really just like one-on-one type situations or 4-on-4 situations where, we looked a bit shaky. And I think if you look at the goals, it all comes in the same kind of way. It's like it's not when we're pushed back and we're doing like a low block type defending. It's not when we've got 11 men behind the ball. It's when they're able to progress the ball up the pitch quickly with 1-2 touch passing, and break open a little bit of space so that somebody like Nico Williams has got a shot at goal, or somebody like Cucurella in this case has got kind of a free cross into the box, which is obviously good quality, and then a good finish from Oyarzabal. But I think overall, it just kind of showed that the coach knew what to do to unlock the team. And I think again we fought valiantly to try and get back into the game. If Olmo's not on the line in that last one, or if Unai Simon doesn't make a good save in that last one, it probably goes into extra time. So overall, I think England really did well to battle back despite some of maybe their tactical deficiencies. But I think overall, Spain had the better of the game and did deserve to go home with something. So I can't complain too much about it.
Yeah,
I'm not
fair
sure
enough.
what you feel, but I think it was kind of, it's probably a result that reflects the game well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with it when you look at the tournament as a whole. Spain won every game they played. Don't get me wrong, they definitely were fortunate in a few. Like I think of that Croatia game where they won 3-0, and Croatia actually had quite a lot of chances, and that could have easily been a draw. Like if you think about the chances that Croatia had, and the conversion rate that Spain had in that game was crazy. It was almost like they scored every chance they had. So, they've had obviously Germany. Cucurella was still getting booed in that final yesterday because of obviously the Germans feel like they've got screwed out of potentially a penalty handball incident with Cucurella. So obviously that could have gone a different way. And I have to be honest, in that game yesterday, Spain played the better football, but I don't think they were as good as maybe they've been in other games. But I just think England just weren't. I think I don't know if it's physically or mentally or both, but certainly it looked very visible that physically they were spent, England, in that second half. I mean, I don't know. We'll touch on it now. Then I was bitterly disappointed with that first goal because it's just so easy. You got to give credit to Spain and the way they've shifted the ball. I agree with you completely. They moved the ball really, really quick, and when they did um, start upping the pace, they looked really dangerous, and they did that straight from the kickoff in the second half. And it would just felt like England were kind of on strings in that move. When Spain wanted to pull them out to the right, they all shifted as a defense to the right, and then they upped the speed up and shifted it very quickly. Yamal out to Nico Williams, and the huge gaps, and he tucks it away. But I look at our defense, and in particular, I don't want to do a pylon type thing, but Kyle Walker positionally has proven in this tournament that he's not the answer anymore, and that we need to look at someone else at right back. And I think we've talked about it on previous pods. He's shown these same deficiencies for Man City. And okay, they still win the league, they still win a lot of the trophies, so it gets swept under the rug. But for a team like England, who don't have that same track record and that same winning mentality and that like kind of culture of winning, those mistakes have proven costly. And they could have proven costly in previous rounds if it wasn't for overhead kicks from Bellingham and Saka scoring great finishes from the edge of the box. Like he's been, I wouldn't say he's made like howlers, but he's been at fault for certain goals and given the ball away and just had really poor performances throughout this tournament. So what do you think I'm being too harsh on Kyle Walker, or do you think it's fair to say that we got cut open way too easily for that Nico Williams goal?
I think the first goal kind of shows it the best. Like he doesn't know whether to stay tight or to go out to Nico Williams coming in from the flank, and it kind of just looks like he's just bumbling about, right? Like I think you can even look at it in that. I think that the first goal that we conceded against Switzerland, or I can't remember who it was. One of the first goals that we conceded in the knockout stages is a similar kind of effort. He just doesn't know where to go. And I don't think you're being too harsh. I agree that he's not long term. He's not the answer anymore, right? I think he kind of was able to get himself out of jail previously because of his pace, and I think that was lazy from us to think that one of his physical attributes can just completely make up for some of his kind of maybe mental deficiencies, right? His inability to be in the right position, and it's just covering up the lazy or the bad part of his game. And the fact that we kind of enabled him by saying, oh, he's fast, he'll get us out of trouble when it's when we've got Mbappe coming up against us. No, he should be getting better on that positional aspect. He should be improving somewhere else. Like we shouldn't just completely rely on one God-given gift that he's got. So I agree with you. I don't think you're being too harsh. I think Walker was the worst player on the pitch. Outside of maybe Kane, he was the worst player on the pitch for the majority of that match, and every single goal came from his side.
Yeah,
And I can't blame him 100% for each goal, but for both of them, he is positioned poorly. Right, for the Cucurella, the second goal, he needs to be getting a block on that. He needs to be getting closer to Cucurella. The fact that he's so open to put something so flat across the goal is poor. The second one, the fact that he decides to go inside when it's very clear that we've got other defenders that could cover that, and he needs to go out to the right hand side or to the left hand side. Again, it's just poor decision making. And no, he's not entirely at fault because we shouldn't even allow Spain to get into those positions in the first place. But he's at fault where it counts. He could have had a much bigger effect on stopping those goals, and he couldn't. He couldn't do it. So yeah, no, I don't think you're being too harsh. I think Walker was poor yesterday.
yeah, and now I think about it, like you said, obviously you got to take praise as a team and criticism as a team as well. And we include the manager in that as well, which we'll talk about a bit later. But I think now I'm trying to rack my brains back to the goals we've conceded, because actually England's defense has been quite decent in this tournament when you compare it to other big nations, right? I think only France had a better defensive record. But I'm thinking now to Slovakia's first goal, and even though there were other errors, John Stones I think loses a header, or Gahey loses a header, and then they also lose their man. But then Carl Walker's playing them all onside. Like he's positionally just way beyond the line. The rest of the defense is all within the line, and he's way beyond it. So even though he's not directly at fault, his lack of positioning or mispositioning plays a part in that goal being conceded. The Switzerland goal, he's sleeping, he's napping at the back post where Mbolo sneaks in and nicks it away and tucks it in the back post. And really, he should be clocked on. What are you doing? Of course, someone puts the ball across the goal. You've got to defend the front post, the middle, and the back post. We all know that. We're not defenders. You were a bit of a defender at times in midfield, but we all know that, right? Those are the places you have to block off. And then again, these goals, obviously Xabi Simons one, we can't blame anyone. I think really. I mean, obviously I know there's the Rice giving the ball away, but there's no defensive mistake. I think that comes from that. But these ones are both again coming from his side. For no reason, he tucks in and he's basically holding hands with John Stones, which allows Nico Williams to have the space to have a clean strike at it. And then when he does go out, his blocking technique just seems off. Like he's almost like turning his body away, scared of the ball. And I'm sorry, you need to have bravery blocking shots, right? One of the big traits that, Gareth Southgate's favourite player, Slabhead, Harry Maguire, has is he just sticks his whole body at it. And that's how you have to be when you try and block balls, right? Of course, you can be unlucky and it can bounce off your arms and go in, as it has for Harry Maguire a bunch of times, unfortunately. But 9 times out of 10, it probably doesn't, and you get a block and, you prevent a goal. And I don't think he has that skill. And then the second one, like you said, I actually think Oyarzabal, he sells Cucurella short a little bit with the layoff, which actually gives Kyle Walker more of an opportunity to go and block the ball. Like he has to close down less space and Cucurella has to rush it. And still somehow it gets beyond him and through and right in the middle where, Gahey's got no chance to try and stop Oyarzabal getting to it because he's got a run on him. And equally Pickford's, going to the middle of the goal rather than the near post and he's beat. So again, no pile-on. Obviously, Kyle Walker's one of the best right-backs we've seen in the Premier League. He's been a top player for Man City for a long time. But I think the same way people are going in on Kane, which we'll get to in a minute, I think there needs to be a bit of an examination of Kyle Walker's future for England. I don't think you can question him for City. I'm sure he can continue playing in the Pep system. But for England, where we need our defence to be more solid, I think we've got Trent. They should be calling up Ben White to try and get him back because I tell you what, Ben White would have been closing those shots down, no problem, right? That's one thing we know defensively. Ben White is really strong. So yeah, I just think we need to look at that area as someone to improve. Let's get on to the which goal is the next one I think we should talk about. I mean, the second one, I guess we've kind of talked about it now. Do you think we need to have conversations about, because people have talked about it a little bit, about Saka coming and tracking back? I don't think that's his fault because I do think it almost looks like he was instructed to go higher and wider in the second half because in the first half he was so disciplined. He was back there helping Kyle Walker out all the time. But in the second half he didn't do that, particularly obviously sadly for those two goals that were scored. Do you think that was a sign of fatigue, or do you agree with me and think it was something that was tactical when it comes to coming and tracking back?
I think it is neither. I think when you break quickly away from a press, who's going to be left over in the other opposition's half? It's going to be all of your attackers that are trying to press. And we're doing donut football like Man United, where our attackers push up and then our defenders stay deep, and we open up that portion between the midfield and the defence, and no one's anywhere near it. And I think in those cases, that's what's going to happen. Like Saka can't literally just stand next to Walker the whole time. Like he's supposed to be doing a pressing job, and this just goes back down to the way that the second half changed so much, right? Like in the first half, we were able to get all 11 men behind the ball a lot of the times that Spain were on it, and they couldn't break through us in kind of a low block, right? And they were trying a lot of things that just weren't working. The second half, what did they do? They started playing the ball 1 touch, 2 touch, quickly, longer, maybe not like long balls in terms of like aerial long balls, but they kept playing the ball quickly across the floor, breaking through lines. And when you do that quickly enough, you give the opposition no time to get back behind the ball. And I think in the case of tracking back, that only works when, let's say, for example, a Grealish gets the ball and he stands on it for a second. And by that time, you're able to get your left winger, right winger back into position and try and help out Walker. There's likely going to be someone overlapping in whatever direction. So Walker and Saka have got to, kind of coordinate who's going for what. But you give them time to recover, right? Tracking back, it's not going to help you when you've like broken through two lines of both our attack and our midfield so quickly, and there's no time for anything. And it just seemed, what I kind of saw in my head, it was very like Man City, Man United type of football, where like we were Man City trying to push them deep, trying to do whatever here, trying to press them high. And then they just broke one pass across. They get it into Yamal, they get it into Olmo, they get it into Fabian Ruiz, they get it into Williams, they get it someone quickly, and then they just play forward and they exploit this place before we've got time to get back and recover. So I don't think really Saka had any chance of getting back for any of those things, because I think they did it so quickly that our team had nothing, no way to figure it out. And it also contributes to the fact that Walker didn't know where he was supposed to be. When you do things that quickly, when you're playing quick football, you confuse the attack, right? With enough movement of different parts of the field and enough movement of the ball, you can, it reminds me of like the magician game, or the trickster game, where they get a ball under a cup and then they just start moving all the cups really, really quickly. And you have no idea at the end of it where which cup has the ball anymore. And that just seems like what happened to Walker over and over again. They moved the ball quickly enough movement, enough distraction. Walker didn't know where he was coming or going. And so that's where I see it. I don't know if Saka can do anything else unless we just go ultra defensive and we kind of sit back a lot more. Maybe Saka can help out. But Spain just completely tactically outclassed us in that second half.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And you're right, because it's interesting, because for me, though, I hear you completely. I feel like it's actually a combination of all the things, though, because I think if Spain play quick and Southgate has given some sort of instruction to the wingers to be more adventurous, and then our defense are slightly fatigued, whether it's mentally or physically,
it opens up space on the pitch.
Yeah. It culminates in exactly what happened. So, yeah, I think it's very harsh on Saka. I think he was doing his darndest in the first half to try and come back and track. And then I agree with you, when things start to spread and stretch and Spain start playing quicker, he doesn't have the opportunity to come and track back, right? Because he's basically doing two people's jobs as that kind of winger, right? With that task, he's got to go forward and create stuff, but then he's got to help Walker. And if they break quickly, and you've been told to be a bit more adventurous, you cheat a little, like 1% more, then you're basically finished. You have no chance to get back. And I feel like that's not a criticism even on Southgate, right? In terms of the being tactically adventurous, that's what we want, right? But obviously there were some other flaws in the tactical approach that
I think it wasn't just adventurous though, it was reckless. Right, it's like the Ten Hag strategy that we talked about before. When one part of the field is good at one thing, you get them to press, and then the other side of the field, you don't have confidence in them being quick enough, so you just let them sit back. It's a reckless way to play. You're giving them space, and I can't remember who it was that said it. It might have been I can't remember anyway. But football is a game of time and space. And we gave them so much space in the second half. We allowed them to exploit the space in the second half, and we had no way to deal with it. So if we were going to play this high line adventurous football that he wanted to have with Saka and Bellingham or whoever's playing on the left wing, playing out wide, that's totally fine. But you've got to tell your defenders to be more aggressive too, and they've got to push up the pitch. And I've been complaining about it the whole tournament, how spread out our players are all the time. I feel like we think that we've got the ball in our hands and we can just throw it over the top. We can't. This is a game where most of the time the ball is played on the floor, and we are literally 5-10 meters away from each other at every point of the game. And that's why you see Pickford hammering it long over and over again. With Spain, you very rarely saw that happen unless they were on the counter and they were breaking quickly forward. And even then, you'd see the defenders all push up as one. Maybe not as quickly, but you'd see them all push up closer to the halfway line or to wherever else. And we weren't doing anything like that. And that just is the biggest indictment I can say, is that like it wasn't a unit. We didn't look like it was a team of players. It looked like it was 2-3 different groups of players trying to chase after shadows the whole time. Whereas Spain really looked like a group of players that were playing as part of one strategy or one tactic. We didn't. And
Yeah.
that is, again, it's mostly second half, because I think first half we were a lot better. But second half, once Luis de la Fuente made that change and kind of changed the way they were playing and how quickly they were moving, we just didn't recover. And again, it's just Southgate's passiveness. He just lets it go past him. And then 15 minutes later, he figures out what the guy's trying to do.
Yeah.
Luis de la
You
Fuente wasn't like waiting 20 minutes and then bringing 3 players on. He was doing one at a time. Every 5 or 10 minutes, he was bringing someone on and changing up the game, keeping us on our toes. And we had no defense for it.
yeah, I think you know who deserves some credit, right? Which I haven't really heard too much in like friend circles and stuff when we've been talking about the game is Zubamendi, you know, because when that Rodri substitution happened, I remember all of us were like, bloody hell, like, you know, this is a good chance now. You know, Rodri's obviously their big fulcrum in midfield, and along, you know, has actually helped Ruiz play better. He's been the driving force. Um, and there's no slant on Zubamendi. He's obviously, you know, a good player. He's been linked with Arsenal, United, with a bunch of big teams, which shows the kind of caliber of player he is. But you know, Rodri's top class, probably the best in his position in the world, and you know, he's obviously now one player of the tournament. But Zubamendi is more adventurous with the ball, and I think the reason why Spain were cutting through us a lot quicker, and it was, you know, like very direct through the line passing, all started from Zubamendi. Like, you know, Rodri's a very good player defensively. He's amazing. He's also got a lot better with his distribution, and he's become more adventurous, goes forward and scores goals. But he's not a conductor with the ball, I would say. I don't think of him that way, right? And I think Zubamendi sits in that kind of Xavi style. He's obviously nowhere near Xavi, right? But in the style where he's on the ball defensive midfielder, playmaker, deep line playmaker. And he helped Spain break those lines quickly and create those overloads in the different areas, which eventually gave us so much problems. And you're right. The best 35 minutes or 40 minutes of England's play was against the Netherlands, and it was Kobbie Mainoo right next to Phil Foden, right next to Saka, in little triangles, close to each other, playing the ball off each other, sucking the Netherlands midfield and defence onto them, and springing. And then all the spare men who had space to isolate Netherlands defenders and midfielders were able to actually hurt them. And Spain did that to us, and we were the suckers in that second half. And I hear you, man. De La
Also,
Fuente.
just look at the goal as well. Like the goal that we scored, it was a triangle between 3 players, basically, right? It's a player moving off the ball over and over again, right?
Yeah,
You heard me when Saka got the ball. I thought, Saka, you've messed this up, mate, because you're hanging on to it for too long. You're hanging on to it for too long, and no one's making moves quick enough for you to get something to them. But luckily, Bellingham makes a late run, gets one. The Saka plays it a little behind him, but you've also got Cole Palmer coming in. So again, it's people moving as a unit. They're moving in tandem with each other, kind of predicting where the other's going to go and where they might end up being. And it's the same thing you can say about the Olmo, Williams, Yamal, Morata trio, even with Zubamendi into it. They were all moving as a unit. They almost always knew where the other person was going to be. We weren't doing
yeah,
that. And it's very difficult to do that when somebody's 25 meters away from you. You can't figure out where they're going to go, where's the space in behind them. We unfortunately don't have players like that, you know, like the Perlos, where they can see space a mile away. The only player that we've got that can do that is Trent, and he didn't get on the pitch for 1 minute. So
yeah,
from that point of view, again, it's really just an indictment of how a unit plays versus how, you know, a disparate, separated kind of team plays, and we got overrun. And I think what you said, overloading, is exactly the right word. They knew when to overload where. The only time we did it was for the goal, and that was it, right? We moved the ball quickly, 1-touch, 2-touch football, sprung surprises on them, but also moved as a unit, right? And that was the only chance that we got to score. And that's where we actually had them scrambling. Like that point, we had them scrambling. I know the set piece was obviously different, but set pieces, if this is how we're going to play, set pieces is the only chance we got.
yeah.
And in set pieces, and in set pieces, I would expect us to kind of dominate them. We're English. We're the kings of set pieces, right? Like we're kings of the air. So yeah, like, but open play, they taught us a lesson.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you completely. And I think not to make excuses, but you could see the benefit of having time with players in the national team because De La Fuente's played. I saw some stats before the game was played where a lot of the players in the squad were actually from the youth setup that De La Fuente had managed throughout his 10-year period with the Spanish FA. So it's no coincidence that there are a bunch of Spanish left backs better than Cucurella. But he picks Cucurella because he's played with him through the ranks and he knows Cucurella's got a good relationship with a bunch of other players in that squad who had also played with De La Fuente through the ranks. And so I have no doubt that all of these, not all of these patterns, right? Because there are some new additions, like obviously Laporte, Lenormand, these guys weren't in the Spain squad. They were French when La Fuente was in the youth teams. So, but the majority of their patterns of play and probably a lot of their style comes from a school of thought and a practice that was already implemented with them when they were in the youth team. So he's probably had thousands of hours with them across that 10-year period. So a lot of these guys know this style like the back of their hand. They don't even have to really practice, or maybe there's some tactical tweaks they have to implement based on the opponent's style. But in terms of how they want to play, they know that. And even though Southgate's got a similar heritage with England, he's been in the England setup for ages. I don't think he's actually had a lot of time with these majority of these players in this squad. This is the one time we had a relatively fresh squad with players based on form and not based on favoritism or Southgate having trusted them in previous tournaments. And the one negative is when you get against a team that are well oiled, like you've said, that are a proper team, you're going to be relying on moments. And we've done that against other teams of a lesser quality, and this was just one step too far. And to be honest, we just didn't create the moments as well. Like I think the Palmer moment was great, but like you said, I don't think that was a moment. I actually think that was a decently worked goal, but we didn't have another superstar moment, unfortunately, in this game, and it was our downfall. Alongside obviously Spain's great play, I think they won it as well. I don't think it's a case of England losing necessarily. Let's get into the player ratings then, Johns. We'll try not to spend like 20 minutes like we did on it last time, but let's go through the players. So we'll start off with Pickwood. How do you rate his performance out of
10? Do I think he could have done better for any of the goals? I think first goal was hit hard at him. Probably is not easy for him to save, but again, a world-class keeper does maybe get a foot on that one. And I do think that he was trying to swing his foot at it, but he just wasn't quick enough to get away from it. Second goal dives the wrong way, but again, I can't really blame him. It's like it has such a short reaction time. So I'm going to give him like maybe a 5 or a 6. I'll probably settle on a 6. I think it's probably harsh. It wasn't really his fault as to how we performed.
Yeah, I agree. I'll probably give him a 6. I think he made some decent saves as well. We can't forget that. He made a couple of good saves, one from Yamal, and then he made the other saves that he should make. So he was left out at sea for the 2 goals, I think. I agree with you. First goal, maybe a top class goalie or a goalie who like is particularly strong with their feet, maybe could have saved it. But other than that, I think it's not one where you say he could have done better. I think it's just is what it is. So I'll agree with you. I'll give him a 6 as well. What about Kyle Walker then?
2. Absolutely poor.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'll give him a 3, but nah, he was poor, man. He did nothing going forward, really.
Yeah.
Made a bunch of mistakes, just poor positionally. It might not be on the eye like the most obvious mistakes to make, but man, how experienced is he? How old is he for him to not know where to be? Like I think Pep must have been looking. Pep, I guarantee you, Pep is on the phone to someone from Bayern or whatever, saying, "You sure you don't want him? Please take him off my hands so I can get someone better in because this guy's useless."
Don't forget, last season there was also a period, and the season
they were going to get rid of him.
No, but also that Walker was out the team, and he was playing a Akanji right back, and he was playing Stones right, and he was doing everything to not play Walker right back.
After last night's performance, I wouldn't be shocked if he did it again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd probably give him a 3. I think 2 might be too harsh, but that's probably just a build up of how frustration with his tournament as a whole. I think maybe as a tournament as a whole, he might have been a 2 or 3 as well. Let's go on to John Stones then. General John Stones. What are you going to give him?
5. I would just
Yeah.
like him to have a bit more authority in that defense. Like Guehi's coming in new, and Guehi's the one shouting at people when they mess it up, and he's just kind of relaxed, laid back, not getting too angry about this, that, and the other, mate. And we need a throwback to some 90s English centre backs because there's not enough character in Stones for me. But I don't think he put a foot wrong necessarily in his performances. I don't think he was horrible. I think he was pretty average. So I'll give him a 5 maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There was one point, and I think it's for the first goal actually, where he's visibly confused. Like his body's turning left and right. He doesn't know which direction to go, and he's completely bamboozled. And Gayhe's in the right position. Shaw's the one who's also doing it, but I understand that because he's his man who's running inside of him. He's not expecting it, so Shaw has to flip from outside to run in because he has to track Yamal. Gahey does the right thing to come and try and help his man out. John Stones is the one who doesn't need to also come over, and then he gets so confused. And I don't think his overall performance was poor. I think he made a couple of good blocks. He came out with the ball quite well, especially in the first half. But I agree with you. He should be the A defender, the A side defender, right? And he doesn't play like the A side defender, right? And that's the biggest indictment I think on his tournament and his performances was you needed a leader in that defense, and I agree with you completely. The reaction I saw from Mark Gahey afterwards was of a defender who was trying to lead and get a bloody grasp of that defense because it was losing its head, and that should be John Stones. So performance wise, I don't think he was poor at all, but he needs to do more, man, and he can't be contributing to the malaise. He has to be the one to pull us out or help us pull us out as a defensive unit. So I'll give him a 5 as well. Gahey then. I'll start with this one. I would give him. I'd probably give him a 7. Might be the only one I would give a 7, and it's not because he was sensational, but he did make a couple of important blocks. He did come and try and clear balls out. I think there's one time where Morata ran off his shoulder, but again there was no pressure on the ball, and he was a sitting duck really to get run off. He was quite lucky it was Morata and not Yamal or someone else with a bit more speed, because otherwise he would have been finished and it would have made him look really bad. But maybe I'm being too kind on him, but I just feel like he was the defender who actually put himself about, again, tried to help settle the defense and get the whole team going. And for him to do that off not many appearances for England, and I think it's his second big tournament, but the first one playing properly, I just feel like he's probably one of the only players who comes out of this game with any credit. What do you think, Johns?
No, I'm giving him a 6, man. Again, I think based off the expectation we have for him, yeah, you probably give him a 7 because you're giving him a little bit more credit based off what you expect out of him. But I don't think we were defensively a great unit yesterday, and I'm not really comfortable giving anyone from that back line a 7. And before anybody calls me out for being biased, wait until the Arsenal players get on this list because you're gonna realise I'm not being. So I'm giving
No,
him a 6.
fair. No,
Yeah.
fair. I do think it is. He might be a 6.5 at best, and maybe a 6 is the right way to round the numbers up for this game. What about Luke Shaw then, Johns? How do you feel he did?
I think it was decent in the first half, but in the second half, I don't think it's his fault. But whatever tactic he was being told to do was useless. Like the fact that he kept coming so central, it wasn't good enough, man. Because I think a lot of while the chances weren't finished necessarily on the left hand side, they were coming from approaching on the right hand side, which is his
Yeah.
side. He's supposed to be closing those down and stopping them as quickly as he could. And it's not entirely his fault again, but just too much space and time. So, I mean, yeah, from my point of view, I'm going to give him same as Stones. I'm giving him a 5. I don't think it was. Yeah, it's not a performance I'd want to see from him over and over again, and I don't think he'd be proud of it. I don't think any of those defenders would be all that proud of yesterday's defensive performance.
Yeah, I thought he was good first half. I think he kept Yamal quiet, but the second half, a combination of the tactics, and he looked absolutely like he looked spent. By about 65 minutes, he was blowing, and I feel like he was asking them to try and get subbed off just after Palmer scored in the 70 odd minutes or whatever. He was desperate to come off. But for some reason, we didn't get Trippier on quick enough, or whoever's a replacement, and it just prolonged the pain because their wingers kept going, young sprightly lads who just seemed to have a lot of energy, and our both fullbacks were sitting ducks, and Luke Shaw was getting twisted up. Not in terms of he wasn't getting twisted in and out by skill or anything, but the speed of passing in between him and Stones, him and Gehi, and the lack of tracking back. Yeah, he got exposed quite a lot in that second half. So I agree. I'd give him a 5. What about Kobbie Mainoo then, Johns?
Again, I think he was decent on the ball, but I think defensively you saw that not only him, I'm going to say the same about Rice. They were both out of their depth, man. They didn't know what to do, especially in that second half. I think, again, I can't fully blame them. I think Southgate also should be giving them direction on where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing and what their mandate is. But they were just losing their men too quickly. They weren't figuring out where to be. They weren't decisive with their actions. And I think, at least from Rice, I see he's got that Gallagher-esque type of he's just going to throw himself around and see what happens when he's confused, right? With Mainoo, he's young. He doesn't have enough experience yet, and he's not the kind of player that's going to just throw himself around and stuff like that. He's a lot more kind of relaxed in general. So, I mean, from my point of view, maybe a 4, but probably a 5. I think a 5 is fair. I don't want it, actually, not even a 4, because Rice is going to be fucking that or below. I'll give him a 5. I think he was okay. He wasn't great, wasn't terrible, but he was definitely a hell of a lot better than Foden, and he was a hell of a lot better than Rice. But that bar is really, really low. So I think a 5 maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd give him a 5. It wasn't his greatest game, and to be honest, Spain did a number on him. It was clearly obvious that they looked at that midfield and went, if this guy gets the ball with a bit of space, he's going to break through our lines, and we cannot let that happen. And so really, it was a bit of a compliment to Kobbie, really, to be honest, because he really had, I can only remember 3 or 4 times obviously he did a lot more, but I can only remember 3 or 4 times that he had the ball. And 2 of the times he gave it away because he was being pressed by about 3 guys. And so, I'm not absolving him of any.
And no one was moving off the ball. He's not going to be able to dribble past 4 people. He needs someone to give him an option. It's the same thing I've said about Saka all the time as well. Give him an option. He can't just run through everyone all the time. Where are the runners? Where are the people trying to make themselves available to him? So with Mainoo, if you leave him in a corner with 3 people around him, I'm sorry, but he's not bloody Ronaldinho. He's not going to flick it over 15 people's heads and get past all of them, right? He's not Neymar. So
even they didn't do that every
even
time.
they can't even do that all the time. And when they did do that, someone from Brazil was elbowing them in the head 5 seconds later. So yeah, no, he definitely got a number done on him, but it was because of the deficiencies elsewhere that no one was giving him an option. Because if you're having 3 players on a person, you've got overload somewhere else, but you've got to be able to find those, and you've got to be able to make the space and make it available to him. And no one was clearly doing that. So yeah, it's not all on him, but it's just, yeah, no, again, it's a lesson, a system issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm also still going to give him accountability. It's a lesson for him, man. It's a lesson for him. He's going to have to learn how to play when people stick it on him, because the talent of the lad is going to happen. People are going to look at him, definitely for United, right, where we've got, at the moment, the quality of midfield's been threadbare. He's going to get pinpointed in a lot of opposition reports and scouting and pre-game stuff, and people are going to execute plans on him, how to stop him. And Spain did it to a T perfectly. He got hooked at 65 minutes or whatever, right, for Parma, which I thought was harsh, really. Even though he wasn't great, I think it was a bit harsh because you probably could have taken Bellingham or Foden or someone else off. But he also was completely justified at the same time because he didn't have a great game. But let's get on to Rice then, Johns. For me, anyway, quickly, I would give him probably a 4.5, but it feels probably wrong to give him a 5 because I do think Kobbie was slightly better. But Rice covered the ground, like you said, better than Kobbie. He can naturally do that. But there were some headless chicken moments where he just was doing some weird things, which I think was pressure. He just got so much pressure put on him. And again, like you said, the formation, the lack of legs around him, the movement, he was just, he was left pretty exposed as well, with man running on him all the time. But I'd probably give him a 4.
He's getting a
I
4.
don't round down.
He's getting a 4. He's not as bad as Walker, but he's not as good as he should have been. Like defensively, is where he was decent in 1-to-1 duels. Like he won most of his duels. He got a lot of tackles in. Right, like he does what he does. But again, the stats aren't going to show the issue with all of them, which was half the time they were nowhere near someone. It can't even be considered a duel or a tackling opportunity because he was about 5 miles away from them, and that was because we were getting played off the park. It was literally like watching, like was it Japanese nationals, 3 Japanese nationals against 100 kids. That's what it looked like at times. and Rice was part of that. He looked like one of the little kids at that point. Didn't know where to go, who to mark, what to do, weren't marking as a team. So he can't get anything above a 4. Yeah, and even that's being a bit generous. He could have changed all of it if he got that bloody header in at the end, but he didn't. So
yeah, fair enough. All right, let's go on to Saka then. I'd give him a 6. I thought he tried. He had a tougher day against Cucurella than I expected, but I think system covered up Cucurella's deficiencies a lot.
No, the ref covered up Cucurella's flaws, mate.
Yeah, the ref allowed
now
him to
everyone's saying it, right? Like, Saka gets hacked quite a lot, right? Yeah, now you lot are seeing it, whereas in the Premier League, everyone's talking about him limping every 5 seconds. You saw Cucurella lay him out about 3 times, and he's too honest of a player to dive. And I said it. You were there. I said, Saka needs to dive a lot more. Because these lot didn't have any shame in diving. Those last 5 minutes, about 15 man dropped to the floor. Even guys on a bench were dropping to the floor to try and get extra time. So, yeah, Saka could have done a better job of trying to draw something out. Because you put Cucurella on a yellow card, it's a long day for him. It's a long day with Saka there. So, yeah, Saka's getting a 6 max, even then I'd like to give him a 5. But I think his build up to the goal was important, right? Because, again, like I said, I thought he messed it up, but he managed to find Bellingham and who managed to find Palmer. And I think it starts with him, starts with the pressure on Cucurella. So I'll give him a 6 just for that purely. But outside of that, man needs to get a bit smarter in the game out here.
He was the only outlet, though.
Nothing happened on the left-hand side.
At least in other matches, there's some element of, we might go to the other side or we might go in the middle or whatever. But this is just like, you're going out right. That's the only way they can attack effectively. So they can afford to double, triple up on him, and yeah, they did with great success, unfortunately for him. Phil Foden, then, I'm going to keep this quick. I'm giving him a 4. I think he was basically anonymous. Yep. I don't remember him doing anything except for one shot.
Only things I remember is his defending.
Yeah,
he defended quite well. That's all I can think about him, and that's not what I want from a number 10.
No, absolutely not. Jude Bellingham, again, I'd also give him a 4. I think he was pretty poor. Don't really remember anything of him.
Just the assist for the goal, and again, that was 1 touch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give people high ranks for that. Like, it was the ball was behind him, and he kind of barely controlled it. But yeah, he looked absolutely knackered, mate. Absolutely knackered. He got the ball. His touch was a bit ropey, but most of our team's touch was a bit ropey, and then it just seemed like he had no energy to drive with it. So Spain knew he was going to lay it off or pass it somewhere, and you need to have that ability to switch it up, and he didn't. And I think a lot of our attackers are going to get low marks because we didn't offer any threat. So I don't know if you disagree, Johnson, but I'm going to give him a 4.
I'd maybe give him like a 4.5, close to 5, but yeah, I think 4 is fair as well.
Yeah, all right. Kane then. Kane's going to get 2. The lowest. He's going to get joint with Walker. He's going to get a 3 for me. Came off after 60 minutes. Only time I remember him doing anything. He had 1 shot blocked in the first half. And for some reason, it just looked like he was completely unfit. And we'll get to this last topic in a minute. But it really did look like he was just not there. And he wasn't physically able to do anything. And if that is the case, Watkins should have started. And Kane should have come on late if we needed some extra threat. Because it was just a waste of a player. It was honestly like we were playing with 10 men. And I really rate Kane, but it was just completely pointless having him on the pitch. He did absolutely nothing. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Johns, or you disagree. But
no, I mean, I haven't seen this guy who's 6'1", 6'2" win ahead of the whole tournament.
He got dominated.
What's the point? Like, he can't stretch anything. He's not running in behind. He's not stretching defenders or stretching lines. He's not doing anything there. So what do I expect from him? He's better hold up the ball well. He better win his aerial duels. He's got to do something. He did absolutely nothing. And I've seen people come out on Twitter and say, oh, he needs his classic runner next to him, like his Son type of thing, that allows him to hold it up and then runs beyond and kind of stretches the defense to give him some time and some space. I'm sorry, you're one of the best strikers that this country's ever seen. You need to have more dimensions than that. I'm sorry, you've got to have more to your game than that. I don't care how old you are. You're not old enough to be playing this card yet, when I can see Cristiano Ronaldo at 34 and 35 doing all kinds of stuff, right? I've just seen Messi win the bloody Copa America again after lumping up his foot. I'm sorry, you've got to be better than that. And he offered absolutely nothing, like literally nothing. I didn't see him for that. The shot that he had, he should have got out of his feet quicker. It's just poor. So in that game, he literally offered nothing. He may as well have not been there at all. I'd prefer to have just us start with 10 men, because it was just too easy. Like Laporte and Normand are not the greatest defenders we've ever seen. It's not Cannavaro out here and Yap Stam. These two Dons are not the best centre-backs ever, and he didn't give them a peep of trouble. Right, one of them's playing in Saudi at 40% every week. The other one, I hadn't heard of until this tournament, which is maybe a slight to myself, but I'm sorry, Kane, top scorer of however many times, European Golden Boot, this, that, and the other. What are you doing? Like, what have you got to offer this team? You're the captain as well, which he should never have been given if this is how he's going to be performing. It was poor.
Yeah.
He's getting a 3. I'd even like to go lower, but, based off the fact that he got subbed after 61, I'd even want to give him a 2, because that's how poor he was. You literally forced a manager that will never drop you to get you off in the 61st minute. That's how poor you are. But 3-2, you decide. It's all crap in my mind.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with you, mate. It was a very disappointing display from him. Let's go through the subs real quick. Watkins, I'll give him a 6. I think he didn't do that much. I mean, he obviously stretched a play straight away, and he was there. Like, I remember him playing. But in terms of
he had one opportunity where like Bellingham kind of hit it to him quite hard, and he kind of tried to spin on it.
Couldn't control it.
Maybe he could have controlled it and shot, but that's what I'm expecting from a generational striker, not from Watkins. I'm sorry, but
I don't blame you for that. Yeah, that was a half chance. Cole Palmer, I'll give him a 7. He obviously scored a goal. He was trying to link up. He was trying to do stuff. He's got to be the highest ranked player, I think. Yeah, along with Gahey in my mind. I think they were the only 2 that went for it. Ivan Toney barely touched the field, so I'll give him.
No, he just came on, fouled somebody, and they just fell on the floor for 15 minutes. Like I can't even give him a rating, and he's getting an NA.
5 or NA. All right, let's go on to the last topic then before we shift gears into the club stories. Southgate's come out and said that the squad's fitness was an issue. We struggled to get Luke Shaw on there. He finally got to play in the final. Harry Kane was playing with an injury. Jude Bellingham was tired. What the heck was going on? What do you make of these comments and this story? And are you looking at Southgate funny now? Because it's quite a revelation to make. I understand why he probably didn't want to share it before, but boy, that it doesn't make his squad decisions and team decisions look good right now, don't you think?
It just reminds me of like a boxer that's just had a 12-round fight that they've lost on points, and then they come out and say, "Oh, I hurt my toe," or "Oh, my costume was too heavy," coming into the ring. Like, mate, you've just had a war. You've got to the final of a tournament, right? I know everyone's angry at you and thinks you're crap and whatever else, but mate, it's not the time for excuses, right? You had enough time to change all these things and to do different things. You bought a large squad of players that you could have played. It's just cheap, man. Just take your L and go home. There's no need for all of this waffling about this person's not fit, that person's not fit. It means nothing now, and it's not. No one's giving you a bly because of that. So you're not doing any good to the team. You're not doing any good to yourself. It stinks. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, it is kind of excuse making, but it also makes me just look at you funny. If you knew Kane was injured or not in full fitness, Luke Shaw, we obviously all had an opinion about why we didn't bring other left backs if he was barely going to play in the tournament. Jude Bellingham as well. You could have rotated and done other things. So yeah,
it's just player protection.
It's pointless. It's pointless, man. It's a pointless argument.
This probably ties into his whole. He creates a great atmosphere for the players. He's just trying to protect them, right? He's given Harry Kane an excuse now, so everyone will go a bit easier on him. The Gary Nevilles and all them lot will leave him alone now. They'll leave Bellingham alone. I'm sure if Foden had any kind of knock, he would have said it as well, so that he could protect his little golden child too. He's just trying to protect the players, but it stinks. Just leave it alone. The players don't care about it. At the end of the day, just leave it alone, right?
Yeah.
I get what he's trying to do, but it's not worth it, man. Just leave it alone. Let us stew on whatever we've got to stew on. And the best thing that we can have right now is silence. Just no one talk, nothing. We don't need any excuses.
Well, all the defenders are out in full force. So I've seen some right ironic stuff. Tweets after England playing from from Jamie Carragher saying, criticising the manager and the style and all these kind of things, and also the players, and then today defending Gareth Southgate. It's just, it is what it is. It's a time when people are getting their stories out there and trying to get clickbaity stuff and engagement, isn't it? So, we'll leave.
What do you expect from a player that never won the Premier League? What do we expect from players? Of course they're going to protect him. They've seen 2 finals and now it's okay. Everything's fine. It's the most success we've ever had. That's the mentality of players like Jamie Carragher. He ain't won nothing apart from a Champions League that you played very little part in. So of course you're going to come out and defend him. If you had players in that team that had won something for England previously, I guarantee you they wouldn't be coming out and defending any of this rubbish. Right?
Well, you see what Roy Keane's saying.
Exactly. You see what Roy Keane, he wins things.
Rhetoric.
You see the other players from other nations who have won things over and over again, they come out and what do they say? It's just not good enough. This player needs to be better. This player needs to be better. You need to do this better. You need to do that. It's just cheap. It's what we expect as a nation. And this is where certain people say, England fans actually want to lose. It's part of who we like, what we want to have a moan and this, that, and the other. This is where I can see it in the mentality of some of our pundits. We're going to let him off now after everyone's complained about him for the last, 4 weeks for how poorly he's played and, the lack of tactics and this, that, and the other. But now, because he got us to a final, which we truly, really didn't deserve to be in, if you think about all the luck that we got, the luck of the draw, the luck of the individual matches, now they're going to say, it's another final. As if no one's going to remember how we got to the final and how we played in the final and the fact that we didn't win it.
I guess we'll keep this question quick. You're not keeping Southgate for World Cup 2026 then, no?
Honestly, no. I wouldn't keep him, but we got to be serious about this. We got to go and get one of the top managers in the world. I don't want to see Carsley or whatever from... I don't want to see him. I don't want to see Graham Potter. I don't want to see none of these guys. In fact, I don't want to see an English manager. I'm sorry to say it. I was saying it to somebody else earlier today. Tell me one English manager at the club level that is dominating a league. Please tell me anyone. Like a top 5, top 6 league. Can you think of any English manager that's battering anybody in any of the leagues? No. Not a single one. Pep, Klopp at the top of, and Arteta now, I guess, at the top of the Premier League. Not English. In Italy, none of them are English. In Spain, none of them are English. In Germany, none of them. Again, I can keep going on all day. None of them are English. Why is that? Why is none of these managers, none of these clubs putting their faith in the English manager? And as a result, why would we want to? Why do we want to do that? Go and get Klopp. Go and get somebody, please. Right? We're not going to be able to beat these guys with Sam Allardyce or bloody Graham Potter or even Eddie Howe. That's a middle of the road choice. Even that's not good enough in my mind. If you want to go on and seriously build from this, your expectations are on the moon. You need to win something now. And unfortunately, getting in Eddie Howe, getting in Carsley, whoever else it is, they're not going to win things. I'm sorry to say it, right? I'm happy to be proved wrong here, but that's not the way forward. So get rid of Southgate and go and spend as much money as you physically can to go and get Klopp or whoever else and actually show that this is a country and an international team that can win things. Because everyone else is laughing at us. Like I speak to colleagues and whoever else, then none of them are English. And they just say, wow, I thought you guys are supposed to be like the inventors of this. Like you're supposed to be the guys for this. Like your league is so good. Why can't you win things? Why? It's been 58 years. We haven't won a single thing. We've got we've had 3 generations, arguably, that are top up there with being some of the best generations of that time. And we still can't win things or get over the line. And you're not going to do that by hiring another Gareth Southgate. So get him out and go and get me a really top-class manager if you want to be serious about doing this. If you just want to get to finals again, keep him. I'm sure he'll get us, bore us into another final in the future.
Yeah, fair enough. I hear you, man. I feel it. It's. I feel like the crossroads moment. We've had a few with Southgate, so I think this is got to be the last one, and they've got to make the right choice. What about your take on Kane? Because there's been a lot of discourse around Kane now. Can't People have written Kane off, said that he shouldn't, maybe retire from English football, or we should move on and choose a different striker. Do you think that's over an overreaction, or do you think that's a genuine question that needs to be asked?
No, it's not an overreaction. I think if you play poorly, I know he's like joint top scorer with 3 goals or whatever, but if you don't contribute enough to the team and to the winning nature of the team, I'd rather have a striker that scores 0 goals but we win. So I think it's a realistic and relevant question to ask. My question is just going to be, the new manager, whoever comes in and says to Kane, are you going to play in a different way? If I tell you to do this, can you do it or not? That's going to be the key. If he says, I'm past it, I can't play like that anymore, or he just, they put him in and he just can't do that role anymore, then you've got to get him off. I'm sorry. Like, he's been a great servant and he's obviously, as I've said, one of the best strikers we've ever seen in this country, right? But it doesn't matter. We can't have passengers in this team. If we want to win things, that is. Again, if we want to get to the final, keep him. It's fine. But you need someone better, or you need him being better for us to win something. So if he can answer that question correctly, and if he can perform in a slightly different role, if he can stretch the lines and win a couple of headers and do whatever he needs to do as he maybe transitions as a player, then you can keep him. But if he can't do those things, you've got Watkins, you've got Tony, you've got a good host of other strikers that you can latch onto and use.
Yeah, fair enough. I do think it's a bit of an overreaction. It's a bit of a reactionary call from some people now saying, writing Kane off completely. But I think every player on there can't be a certainty. I feel like every player needs to prove their worth, needs to prove it in an England shirt. Not only in the Premier League, where for example, like Phil Foden in the star-studded team with a million other, world-class players, where your life gets made a lot easier than it will be in an England shirt. You need to do it in an England shirt. And the majority of those players have either not done it or have been given too many opportunities, and you need to, have a clean break. I don't know if Kane falls in that latter category. I feel like he's maybe in the former category, where he's actually shown up a bunch of times and, he's also failed a few times. But I think if it is true about the comments about his fitness or whatever, which, to be honest, I think it kind of did look like that, right? I'm not to give him an excuse. It did kind of look like he was off the pace, from the huge body of work of Kane, and at Tottenham, at Bayern, even just this last season, it did look and feel strange and off the way he was playing. So if that is the case, then I don't think you should write him off. But I do think, like you said, you should question everything, and the style should be the key. The system should be the key, and Kane has to fit within that system. Or you need to create a system around Kane that's going to bring the best out of everyone. And we haven't.